Hey team, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and today we're going to be talking about your horse being respectful towards you when you're working with them. So quite often one of the things that we get told is that our horse is being naughty, it's pushing us around, it doesn't respect us, and so we're quite often told to push them through it, make them do it, or punish them for their behaviors. And so what I want to talk to you about today is, what does respect actually look like? So if we're getting into a conversation about respect and dominance theory, we're talking about our horse, having physical strength over you, power over you, or us having physical strength or power over the horse. And so this is the conversation that we're initiating when we're demanding that our horse is respectful to us and we're working them for submission. Is we're having a power over battle where there's a winner and a loser, and you are saying I am right, you are wrong, and you are asking them to give in to you and submit to you. And so that generally becomes a conversation around physical strength and power, which is not the conversations that I really want to be having with my horses. I don't enjoy those kinds of conversations, but it's one of the conversations that my students rarely are going to win, because I work with a lot of beginners to intermediate riders, and even once you become a professional within the industry, you're still not going to find that power battle setting you up for success with your horse, because what we're looking for is team and unity. So what we're talking about instead is our compassionate leadership skills. Are you somebody that your horse wants to follow? Are you somebody that your horse wants to seek direction from? Are you somebody that your horse wants to lead them? And this is the challenging part, because it's our skills are required. Your horse is not going to seek you for leadership if they don't think that you have the competency to lead, but they also want your awareness of their environment. So the most important thing to the horse is their safety and security. So sometimes, just physical size, power and strength can offer that to them. But if it's used to constantly punish them and threaten them and force them into submission, then we're going to end up with them in more of a fight response to us than in asking us what we want them to do next response. And so when we're talking about compassionate leadership, it's that leadership to have awareness of their environment, to say, yes, you are safe. I'm going to ask safe things of you, and I'm going to create situations for you to learn and grow in that feel good and that are going to, maybe stretch and challenge you a little bit, but I'm going to guide you through the process. And so if you're new to this, if you're a beginner or even an intermediate that's like stretching your skill set, we can't always show up for our horse as a leader, and sometimes we have to be a follower, and we have to allow our horses to lead, and we need our horses to have confidence in us and us to have confidence in our horses for that to work well. Realistically, this is where we're heading trajectory-wise when we're talking about our relationship with our horse. So we can't be always telling them what to do. We can't give them all the directions and expect them to just respond. If that's what you want from your horse, you need to sell your horse and get a motorbike, because your horse is an emotional being and it's going to respond to you intellectually, biologically, and emotionally. So it's super important for you to acknowledge that, everything that you are doing with your horse is changing their internal biological status. So if you're, creating a lot of pressure, then they're going to have a stress response. If you're creating a safe environment, they're going to have a relaxation response. If you're trying to teach them something new, they might get anxious, frustrated, and overwhelmed. So everything that we're doing is affecting their internal environment, and that's what we see as behavior. So we're looking at two different things here. Respect can be earned and respect can be forced. The conversation around forcing respect is not one that we really enjoy, and it can be a hard one to win, and it can easily escalate into the horse feeling threatened, uncomfortable, and unsafe. And so then we're going to have unpredictable behaviors anyway because your horse doesn't feel safe. Or we can have respect that is earned through our compassionate leadership skills. And that's why compassionate leadership is our second pillar in our holistic horse handling program, is that you need to at least have an awareness that these leadership skills are required when working with your horse, because it's so quickly and easily combined that behavior and cueing or language become intertwined in the same thing. But we really need to intentionally tease that apart. What are we doing that is language, and what are we doing that's behavior? What is your horse doing that's language, and what is your horse doing that's behavior? Because the only way that your horse has to communicate to you is through body language. So are they communicating something to you through their body language? Or have we pushed them into a point where we've escalated that internal state and they can't actually control their behavior anymore because we've made the experience too stressful for them? So we're going to talk about 5 key important aspects of being a compassionate leader. So first is clear as kind, and this is why we have like 50 or more shaping plans within our holistic horse handling program, is we want to have clarity and intention around the words and the language that we're creating with the horse. If you don't really know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what your horse is supposed to be doing in response, it's very difficult for your horse to give you the right answer. If you're going to say, yes, this is the behavior that I want at one moment, and then no, that's not the behavior I want in another moment, it gets very confusing for your horse, and so they stop trying and they stop that conversation, that dialogue with you. They just internalize and try to respond to the best of their ability. So clear as kind, we want to be creating language with our horse. We want to be cueing these words into our horses so that they understand what the desired response to the ask is. And then we're going to build that language out into our more complex conversations that we're going to have in the saddle. The next thing that we're looking for is, are you actually comfortable with giving direction to your horse? A lot of the students that I work with aren't comfortable in that leadership role, and they aren't comfortable with giving direction. And especially when it comes time to get into the saddle, a lot of the direction that we're giving is pressure. So it's the application of the bit and it's the application of the leg. And so we do want to be gentle and softer and kinder when we're using those aids. But what can happen is that conflict internally is, rather than just applying the ask softer, what a lot of people will do is just stop asking altogether. So that's one thing, is that you are confident with giving direction, but then you have that internal doubt where you're unsure if what you're doing is bad or wrong or is going to be of detriment to your horse, and so you back off, and so then you stop giving your horse direction altogether, and so you can't show up as a good leader in that moment. But also, typically a lot of parents that I work with are quite comfortable with giving direction. They're quite happy to just be telling the horse what to do. But a lot of the kids that I work with, this is one of the things that we really have to go through together. Quite often they're used to being told what to do, and they're not actually used to giving direction to others. So building up that confidence in their ability to give direction and be successful. And it doesn't have to escalate to using the whip to force the horse into submission to doing the ask. We're going to have a conversation about what is motivating our horse, which is what brings us to our next parts of our compassionate leadership skills. Is we're going to make it impossible for them to fail. Make the task so achievable that you can finish on a positive note, feeling like you could have done more, instead of, you get into that place where you get frustrated and irritated and you think your horse should just know the answer and they should just give you what you're asking for. We want to stack the wins for them, not the errors and the mistakes. We lose their engagement, we lose their interest, even if we're doing treat training exercises, when they can't figure out what the right answer is. So to keep that willingness, keep that engagement, and keep them enthusiastic about what we're asking them to do, we need to make sure that we are clear in our expectations and what we're asking of our horse, but also making those expectations achievable for both us and the horse. If we're constantly going in and stretching what we're capable of and what our horse is capable of, then we're going to end up with us not wanting to do the work and our horse not wanting to do the work either, and we're both going to go sour on it. So make sure that you're strategically setting up your lesson plan so that you can go win, 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 finish. And so then you have to actually be reading how your horse is responding to that ask, as to how complicated it is. If you ask 3 times and the horse hasn't given you the right answer, then you need to adjust your goalposts and make it more achievable for you and your horse. So we also are going to use these asks to better understand our horse and their personality. We want to know what they like, what they don't like, what's going to motivate them, and how they like to be asked. We're going to adapt our tone and the way that we use ourselves for different horses. For example, within the school, we have a big Australian draft horse that is quite confident in himself and quite secure in himself. He doesn't really need a leader, and he doesn't have a great work ethic because he isn't really designed to be trotting and cantering around. He's designed to be pulling things. So he probably has a great work ethic, I should reframe that, for dragging and pulling, but not necessarily a great work ethic for endurance and fast and go fast, jump high. Whereas our little Andalusian cross stock horse is super sensitive, super reactive, super highly strung, super intelligent, super quick. So we're not going to have the same conversation with the two of them, because the ask that's required of the draft horse is going to be different to the ask that's required of that horse that's more reactive and more sensitive. And that's pillar 1 and pillar 4 of our holistic horse handling program. Do you know what it looks like when your horse is relaxed, and how can you support that relaxation or release of tension in training? And then if you are seeing the tension building, what is that tension from? Is it frustration, or are they, the people pleasers that are starting to get anxious, trying to do the right thing and anticipate the ask? And so we want to adapt our training plan to suit the horse that we're working with. We're going to use the same words, but the way that I talk to my mum is different to the way that I talk to my son, is different to the way I talk to my partner, is different to the way I talk to my students, is different to the way I talk to my friends. We're all using the same words and the same language, but it's that relationship dynamics and their unique personality that means that I have to adapt a little bit to figure out how we can slot in together to have that team, instead of just like in constant conflict, because the way that one person likes to be talked to is different, and that other person sees that tone as offensive. So we've got to be able to adapt within their parameters of how they want us to work with them, to cue these things into them. And then we're never going to completely rule out pain. Especially if we're seeing escalated behaviors infrequently, especially if you've been to one vet and they said they're fine, then maybe you need to talk to other people. Even our chiropractor, he will say, yep, your horses are fine, and I know that they're sound, I know that they're not lame, but I also know that they're not perfect, because no horse is ever going to be perfect. And so we're constantly working on supporting their physical development, but even to the point of one of our virtual students, she went through our whole holistic horse handling process and she was seeing results, but she hadn't completely seen the behavior leave, particularly in confined places, and got a vet out who finally did x-rays and found out that her horse actually had a fractured neck. And so those kinds of things, they are extreme, and I have not had that experience personally, but we can never completely rule out pain when we're working with these big behaviors that are generally an expression of the horse feeling threatened. And so our horses are going to feel threatened even when we're not being threatening, if we're asking them to do things and they have that kind of injury that we don't know about. So these are 5 qualities of about 10 qualities that we teach as compassionate leadership skills within our holistic horse handling program. Which of those qualities resonate with you? What are you already doing? Or have you had an aha moment where you're like, oh, I need to be doing that? Let us know. Drop a link, drop a comment in the comment section and let us know what you learnt from today. We love hearing back your feedback and how you're going with your training, and we love supporting you in the development with your horse. Until next time, happy trails.